A few days after the Conference of Heroes at Galatia, a key part of the plan to save the universe was now to unfold in the office of Tritachyon CTO Ryan Arroyo. Once it had been a resplendent display of corporate opulence, now it looked more like it had never finished construction. The company's downsizing in response to violent market conditions was hitting even the highest echelons. "You've finally come to take me away, have you?" Arroyo said after the IEC crew figuratively burst through the missing door and held him up at Contreras point. "We're here to fix a long-standing bug in your software," Contreras claimed. "But you're that IEC lot, aren't you? Half the company's been taken over to your planets. Here we're done for. Besides, there are no bugs in our software. Here we call them oopsie whoopsies. For the shareholders, you must understand." "I understand entirely. I am here to fix a long-standing oopsie-whoopsie that prevents discussion of the collapse of the..." Arroyo's computer beeped censoriously. "Oh, that's... You know about that?" "The fact you don't know that we know is the very reason we must take action. The secret is out. The war, the Omega event, and what must happen now. It's all connected to the slight problem. Concerning the anti-universe... Yeah, I heard something about that. What is it exactly?" "Beep!" Contreras didn't say. "You see, we have to remove this feature from all devices at once." Right. Arroyo nodded blithely. He moved to lean back in his chair, then quickly remembered the back had been sold to pay for the legal fees in the case of Tritachyon Corporation versus Tritachyon, with an E on the end, Corporation, the biggest and most boring high court branding dispute of the 3rd century post-collapse. Arroyo sensed that he might have the opportunity to get into some marginally more interesting work today. "The thing is, with the war, we can't access the devices of non-compliant customers," he said through a grin. "That doesn't mean there isn't a way." "Don't worry about access to devices, we've got a plan," Ryman announced. "By Lud et al., you lot have a liberating time, don't you? A plan? I think I'd be torn to shreds by the board if I suggested to do something. I suppose I'll come with you. Think I'm the only one left in this building anyway." "You are, and the lower floors are on fire," Mars reported. "I think some of your non-compliant customers of the heavily armed Space Marine variety are having a quick bite to eat in your canteen." "It can't be that bad." "They don't let you out of your room, huh? I get it," Ra said. "You have to come up with something, like a rope, or like a bunch of weird aliens come and abduct you. I'll make you a bed in the torpedo room. It's really cozy, and no one ever comes in the tubes, so it's like a private suite." "What a fascinating offer." Arroyo nodded, with the sweetest smile in the business. Today was a lot to process. "Belay that kind offer," Contreras said. "I have prepared a room for you on the Star Witch. You will provide me with a roster of employees who will be willing to aid in the creation of a new software improvement virus. We call them value-adding itty-bitty boo-boo go-aways. And I can hear someone coming up the stairs. Let's use the window, eh?" Mars said from the door. At this, the gargantuous landing shuttle came to the window and nudged it gracefully out of its frame. "Evacuation or obliteration, last call," Captain Eulalia's voice resounded above the gentle blast of jet engines. Outside, other ships were dashing about a smoke-streaked sky, and all sorts of flashy action was taking place in the city below the corporate tower. The whole sector was like this most of the time, so lucky we get to have a nice time out in space for most of this story, isn't it? "Yeah, fine," Ryman said with a strange sadness. "I'll tell you what this was about, so you're up to speed on the drama. Contreras was going off on the Star Witch again, which always left Ryman feeling a little high and dry back on the Gargantua, but more so she had invited this guy they'd just met to go with her. She hadn't even let him on the Star Witch yet. She said it was too much for him, or he was not ready to take on the cognitive load of understanding its workings. He couldn't find the nerve to ask what exactly this meant, nor could he abandon his pride so much as to inform the ship counselor about this interpersonal relationship affecting official business. If he had though, Mars might have been able to tell Ryman that, somehow, none of the IEC's contracted crew had ever been assigned to the Star Witch. Yet it seemed to fly very nicely, and all the weapons tests Contreras had done in the last few days were mighty impressive. It was loaded with huge reality-destroying lasers and sunlight-blocking swarms of bomb drones. The sort of weapons usually crewed by hundreds of nobodies with engineering degrees. What was going on here? Imagine Contreras looking you in the eye, winking, and saying, It's a secret. That was enough to throw Ryman off the trail for a while, so maybe it will work on you too. For now, let's see the next step in their grand plan. The IEC fleet departed the beleaguered Tritachyon world of Ochu-Bress, bound for the other side of the core, for the never-not-leaguered, even in the first place, world of Epiphany. This barren moon was the one place in the core where you could find card-carrying members of the Luddic Path. Remember, even their brethren in the official Luddic Church considered the Pathers to be heretical terrorists and whatnot, so these true Ludbloods didn't really show their faces around respectable planets, aside from ransom demand videos, that is. Fortunately, Epiphany was far from a respectable planet. It was more like a moon with a good PR team. It was grey, cold, and starved of atmosphere in all senses. The perfect place to consider the finer details of Lud's teachings, / the finer grains of more potent explosives than you can normally buy in the shops. The team were here to make a deal with their old nemesis, prophet, sister in Lud, and phantom protector, Bora Aquarii. I think it's simple. I've got something you want, you've got something I want, Bora said across the floor of a barren grey room with barren grey walls, barren grey ceiling, 2 barren grey doors, and a barren grey sky shining through a window whose noise and colour escapes description. In this room, the IEC crew were sat cross-legged, joined now by their occasional sidekicks Thor and Wens, who had dragged Bora into this meeting with promises that Contreras was now wary of, for Bora was pointing right at Ryman beside her. "He is not for sale," Contreras said. More relationship progress, that is. "Remember, Treasurer, at all costs," Ryman said, testingly. "You are not a cost, you are an asset," Contreras said back, which was, I think, quite touching. "I was not talking about his body," Bora said, almost shouting the final 2 words. "I have enough bodies as it is. I've been to your resort, your heathen den, your sin den, your wonderful sin den." "It is a wonderful sin den, ain't it?" Thor nodded with a thumbs up to Wens. Wens said, "Everyone who goes, goes hard, and everyone who comes—" "State your price. You shall not have my captain nor my Star Witch," Contreras interrupted. We'll never know what poetry Wens was about to deliver. "I want that," Bora clarified, pointing even harder at Ryman. Upon closer inspection, she was pointing at something bulging out of Ryman's clothing. Yes, his Tritachyon banking card, which he'd banked with every day of his life. "Oh, thank the stars, I thought this was going somewhere very different," Ryman said, relieved, disappointed, and now pushing out the cash to make this whole interaction go away. The old classic. "So how much will it be? I mean, you're giving us the whole ship, right?" "It will be a price fair for the value, but I warn you it will not be a low price. What I am offering to sell you are secrets that lead to great temptation, secrets that allow you to move freely about the universe, but in turn bring you too close to the you-know-whats. We took this technology from a destroyed remnant base, and Lud's will was that we would discover the last piece of the puzzle to make it work. Silence, quiet. That's it. Lud always taught us that machines interfere with everything, from our minds to the fabric of reality. That's the ingredient those AIs were missing. They couldn't switch off, like us. Yep, it's wisdom, and I'll show you exactly how to do it. What that's worth. Space and time, light and dark, well, it's worth more than those. In fact, let me tell you right now that I will not settle no messin', no negotiations, for anything less than this, my final and only offer. 5,000 credits. The mic was figuratively dropped onto the dusty chamber floor. "You what?" Ra burst out at the back, but with a snap of Contreras' fingers, Allison tackled him to the ground and smothered his mouth shut with practiced ease. "That, Walker Aquarii, is a price that we are, as much as it hurts us, willing to pay. Will you authorize it, Captain?" Contreras said calmly. 5,000, Ryman said, wobbling back and forth on the floor. This had better be worth it, eh? Alright, let's pay. Here, I'll let you put in the numbers yourself, so you can know there's no funny business. So saying, Ryman gave Bora his bank card and a tripad to make the credits transfer. Fortunately, it would not display that the previous transaction had been 2.4 billion credits paid to CEO Sun of Tritachyon for expenses in building massive defense cannons on the new fuel factories still being pieced back together over in Zumu. Yet to the Pathers, for whom money was quite a novelty, 5,000 credits would go a very long way. Therefore, thanks to an extremely mismatched exchange rate and a good old-fashioned lack of information available to the smaller party, an unequal treaty was signed in which the flagship of the Luddic Path crusading fleet would be leased to the IUC for no less a period than 99 cycles or until the end of the universe, whichever occurred first. The handover process was rather simple. First, Bora had everyone switch off all their devices. The crew thought this was for a prayer and went along with it, but had they been listening to Bora's rant mere minutes earlier, they might have foreseen what actually happened. There was a whirring sound coming from the floor. Then, with no fanfare or sense that anything had happened at all, they were all sitting on the floor of Bora's grotty bridge. I would say it happened in the blink of an eye, but that's misleading, as it was much faster than that. It didn't even make a sound, because making a sound takes time. That fast. It took a few seconds for their brains to reset. "Oh, she got us again," Thor declared, proving his brain could reset the fastest, or perhaps it wasn't turned on in the first place. Allison vomited with power shower pressure right into Ra's face. Ra laughed uncontrollably. Mars said no, then slapped himself in the face. Titanian didn't wake up. His attachés spiraled off in all directions, spewing. Contreras did absolutely nothing at all, and Ryman said, "So it works. Transfers... You could have... Oh..." Then the vomiting came home. "We're gonna set up a real wild theme park with this. Thanks, Big Bora," Wen said, excitedly leaping to his feet and grabbing a drink he'd previously left on the sideboard of the slobbish studio apartment cum Starship Command Center. "There is a sense of Omega," Contreras muttered. "And you're welcome, ha!" Bora added. The vomit made a mess, but it was still a mighty fine purchase, and they didn't even need Eulalia to come pick them up from this away mission. As for how exactly this translocation had occurred, that was a head-scratcher that Ryman happily donated to his old pal Sebastian, although he also donated a bill to the Galatia Academy for 150,000 credits, a more plausible price for the Lud cruiser even in the absence of universe-destroying tech hidden in its databanks. During these dealings, Ario had been cultivating a gang of Tritachyon dropouts to work on the IUC's mega hack. Creating the software update to remove any censoring of distress-causing apocalyptia was the easy part. In fact, Tritachyon had no shortage of internal rebels who knew exactly how to do it. From bored office workers to full-on hacktivists, the company had no shortage of people who had snooped, backdoored and kill-switched just about every bit of code in just about every device in the sector. But this all meant nothing if they couldn't actually access said devices to install a sneaky update. Getting a transmitter with the broadcast range was simple. The Persian League had installed several such hyperspace broadcasters around the sector long ago, first seeking to escape hegemony's own media censorship, then later to spread the League's propaganda/advertising partner messages. Therefore, all one needed to do was avoid the League's military patrols, hack into a transmitter undetected, and transmit the message in such a way that it would bypass not only the transmitter's own security, but also that of the receiving devices and any anti-League protocols the other governments had arranged. Yep, that's the simple part. Why? Because all the hard work would be done by none other than Associate Professor Alvis Sebastian, as per Ryman's master plan. Sebastian needed to come up with enough practical understanding of transverse jumping technology to be able to at least jump information. This is what is called a hardware solution to hacking concerns. Instead of coming up with a complicated way to trick your target's software into doing what you want, you can transmit the exact stream of execution data into their processors, such that they're already doing what you want before they know it. And that's the second most difficult part. Most difficult of all was the cover story. Since the Persian League needed to be given a reason why the IUC's suspiciously heavily armed expeditionary fleet was dropping into their territory, Mars had arranged a series of televised meet and greets. The aim? To give exclusive interviews to the slobbering media companies that will reveal just what the mysterious IUC is up to. People were certainly curious, and this was before they found out how much extra tax they had paid to establish this new ultra-government. Therefore, the cameras were all metaphorical eyes, figurative ears, and symbolic noses when the IUC public relations team took to the podium amid the lovely industrial wasteland that was Kazaron, the Persian League's ugly pre-post-industrial seat of power. This team at first consisted of Contreras, Allison, Ra, and Titanian, whom popular vote had decreed were the most photogenic of the ruling class. But in order to widen their appeal to someone or other, Brother Thor was added to dance around piously in the background, and from Contreras' pocket, Enrico provided both AI representation and a much-needed babysitting service that would double as a slap to hegemony the moment everyone saw through his disguise. And that's one of those AI people we keep hearing about. The interviewer was asking this panel, pointing at the green cylinder that was Enrico's head.
More than one, to be precise. And you know, we do like to be precise,
Enrico said cheerily. When you've been alive for 10,000 cycles, you pick up a little media training here and there. I really can't believe it. Is this allowed? The interviewer said, looking to her other side, where another guest was sat, surrounded by metal-suited guards. This guest was none other than Reynard Hannon. Heard of him? He was the prime demarchon of the League, which, to skip the details, meant he was the biggest cheese of a particularly cheesy Illuminati. I think that's for the officials of the Independent Exploration Convention to make a case for, isn't it? Hannon said. Oh, let me, Allison shot in. The AIs, they aren't evil at all. No, wait, sorry, some of them are. And I'm not really sure about that one, this one, Enrico. But, they're really great people, kinda, Ra came in. They might have tried to wipe us out, but if you go through all the drama, it was only because they loved us. It was something like that. And now they're going to save us by killing us again, but like way less. And a whole load of them have actually come over to join us and save the universe. Like for real, as in we don't all die. I mean, surely you can't do better than that. The final remark was directed at Demarchon Hannon, who wisely waved away the cameras to avoid this line of argument. The media crew started clamouring to get more information on the maybe dire things these cheery siblings were spewing. I'll take your questions, please, one at a time, Contreras said, stepping forward to very deliberately block Allison's lower 4/5 from view. Note Allison is quite tall, and pulling Titanian in to deftly screen off Ra's mugging mug. What's all this about them robots trying to kill us all again then? Was a rough amalgamation of the question that formed from the noise of human voices and small writing styluses bouncing off Enrico's casing. The artificial intelligences have resolved to keep this universe alive as long as possible. Unfortunately, it has been discovered by both these AIs, and now we humans of the academic business community, or ABC, that the use of hyperspace communication and travel is altering the nature of our universe, such that it has not only become impossible to use gates to connect to other sectors, but very soon it will begin a runaway collapse of space-time. You what? Was the even rougher amalgamation of the disgruntled grunts and confusing fussing that ensued. Therefore, Contreras ploughed on, it is the case, as many of you have cleverly surmised, that certain human activities require curtailing in order to preserve the universe. The AIs who once slaughtered us so skillfully have changed their ways, like my good friend and colleague Beta Enrico here.
We are what the other AIs call rogues,
Enrico chimed in.
Trying to find a human solution to a human problem. It is human instinct that is the enemy of the machine cause, not the humans themselves. This is a distinction that is most inconvenient, yet in studying it closely, one can grow a sense that there is an unexplored route to salvation, and I have both faith and a calculated certainty that this group of world-saving taxpayer wasters is going to be able to do it. So the first step in our solution is simple. We stop the activity that causes the end of time, and hence, time does not end.
You are proposing we cease to use hyperspace. That's practically worse than the danger you claim it will swerve us clear of. Demarchon Hannon stepped in, to much applause.
Yes, that's what all you flashies say about this,
Enrico complained.
That was half the reason we didn't want you to get involved in the solution. You can't admit you have a problem, and you can't admit we have a solution, and the end result always comes down to either you kill yourselves and we fail our mission, or we kill you to stop you and we fail our mission. And it doesn't look so good for you in either scenario, does it? Trust us, we have been thinking about this a lot. All we do is think on your behalf. That's what your ancient ancestors told us to be good at, and look at where it's got us.
Contreras slid Enrico deeper into her pocket to muffle his old machine ranting, and then said, allowing humanity to fall so that it might be preserved, that's not what I want. It is what the AI, what Omega, their leader, proposes. We of the IEC have an entirely different solution. We believe we have discovered a way to save our universe by combating our true enemy, the Great Ones. Allison was about to object, but Ra carried out his special mission to not let Allison ruin everything, a mission that Pope Ryman had secretly assigned to him just after giving a very similar one to Allison to conduct on Ra. And of course, the biggest of all was to Titanian, who was authorized to make a large scene and derail things if it looks like the rails were heading into PR Badlands. This was a mission he took quite seriously, and hence was on the edge of his seat with a clutch of one-button fireworks and a satchel of Mars's side business happiness machines at the ready. With iron discipline, Titanian watched Contreras explain to the leader of the Persian League and a crowd of media monkeys what exactly a Great One was, and what this whole slight business with the problem concerning the anti-universe was about. I'm sure it all made perfect sense, especially with about 75% of it being bleeped out by both Enrico and the hundreds of computers all around them. Interestingly, most people present hadn't encountered this feature before, having not accidentally said forbidden truths about the anti-universe aloud. I recommend you try to explain this situation aloud at home, just in case you're in the same boat. All this led to an exchange in which Demarcon Hannon asked, "You are offering us the chance to either accept the rule of the machines, who will bide their time until this Great One's business nearly kills us, then come to enslave us all, or we follow you on the vague promise that you will determine a method to eliminate the Great Ones in another universe, all the while buying up the antimatter that IEC factories will now forcibly claim monopoly over, to make us slaves not to the AI, but to you. Is that truly the choice you would have us make?" "No, I didn't offer you any choice at all, nor ask for your opinion, Demarcon," Contreras said. She turned to the camera. "Vote IEC at your next local election. Such is my command." "Get your free gifts, thank you very much, you've been great," Titanian suddenly cheered, barely deflecting the singularity of incredulous rage crashing upon the stage. "Agent Ra to Fathership, we're out of time. What's the situation?" Ra said.
The situation is, well, what is it, Nafi?
Ryman's voice answered.
Transfer's installation calculations are ever so fun,
Nafi reported.
I am loath to stop. Well, I think the little ball of secrets has got us the installation vectors. We're at the transmitter in orbit right now. Just keep everyone busy for a few more minutes. Is it going okay?
Zuzu C accidentally started threatening the Demarcon.
What? There's a Demarcon there?
The Prime Demarcon, yeah. You know the guy.
The Prime Demarcon? Mr. Nessus? Mr. Nessus, where are you? Oh, Ludital, save us. Literally, Ludital, save us right now, right now. I'm not joking. Lud, listen to...
Ryman's signal cut off, but he was probably out of constructive things to say anyway. Perhaps his prayer had some effect, as Thor was currently negotiating with the wall of armoured men the Demarcon had surrounding the stage. These investigators of the occult nature of reality are filled with righteous authority, friends. So do not feel they belittle you when they command your obedience. For the truth is, you were always little in the face of the true way of Lud, and to allow the IEC to regulate the use of your machines, the way of Lud will come so much easier. You will be saved. Saved, kinda like us right now, saved right now, saved at the current time, from the current situation. If you think Thor is having a moment, then curse you for underestimating him, for he was in secret communication with Captain Eulalia in a shuttle within the yellow clouds above. You are all under arrest, and I want to see a copy of this charter you keep trying to hide behind. Demarcon Hannon was raging. You are legally obligated to follow my instructions, Contreras calmly claimed, pulling a round device from her blazer. Yeah, it was a bomb. If you've ever done HR dispute management training at the Tritachyon Corporation, you'll recognize this tactic. 5 seconds, he says. Allison was reporting to Titanian nearby. Right, put the priest in his box, Titanian ordered. A scheme was afoot. The box Thor was pushed into was about 2 foot by 3 by 4, and indeed 5 seconds later there was a flash of dark. That is to say, the lights that kept the miserable planet illuminated all day long were cut off for a good 30 seconds. What? My tripad says it's updating, someone claimed. Mission accomplished, Contreras stated, with a bow to the defunct cameras. Now, old man, Ra called. Titanian set off all his fireworks, and then cast his bag of strange humming rods and cups out into the crowd. most likely terrifying them even more than Contreras' offer you can't defuse routine. But with distractions all over the place, and the security team scrambling to secure the Demarcon first and foremost, our heroes were able to smuggle themselves into a car-like thing beside the stage. This car-like thing was, to describe it plainly, a dumbfire missile with some axles and wheels rigged underneath by none other than the universe's foremost improvised stunt vehicle expert, Ra Olympus. There were handlebars for 4 passengers, and a luggage rack for the box of Thor completed the escape package. And best of all, this analog vehicle could still be operated while every Tritachyon device in the sector was suddenly restarting to install a strange update, allowing it to get a head start on not being executed. Whoosh! Ra took everyone off down into a long storm drain canal, eventually tumbling up the side when it turned a corner, ramping over a wall of pipes, and then rumbling off across the arid ground of a toxic waste field. It was so cool that the biggest tragedy of this whole tale is that no device capable of filming it was spared from Ryman's phantom code injection. So you'll just have to take Ra's word for it that all this great stuff really happened. "There she is," Titanian said, pointing upwards at the large block of metal falling towards them. At the last moment, this block fired its engines. It was the shuttle from battlecruiser Lion, and its fancy modern controls were actually disabled for a while by this update plan. "We should have thought of that, huh?" Ra shrugged. As usual, it worked out somehow. Luckily, most people were too poor to have fully automated craft at their disposal, so this whole affair wasn't the huge mess of car crashes and plummeting planes you might imagine. No, this is a happy ending. The shuttle scooped up the crew, left the missile to zoom off into the sunset on its own as a nice red herring, and then everyone jetted back to orbit, where the Lion promised a safe escape. Or did it? Right. The others gave me a spot to meet up. It's outside, so let's get a move on. Eulalia reported on her fancy bridge. By the way, outside referred to hyperspace in the world of spacer talk. So they had to spend about a day sailing full steam ahead for a hyperhaul. That was more than enough time for quite a lot of planetary defense platforms to launch quite a lot of missiles at the ship, which had quite a lot of arrest warrants now pinned to it. But there was no epic battle to escape the authorities, so don't get your hopes up, because Contreras had thought of all this in advance. In fact, she was depending on this dangerous scenario to perform live testing of the extensive defense systems installed on her pride and joy, the Star Witch. For a ship with no crew, it was rather fantastic. From the darkness of space it appeared, hiding in plain sight. Imagine a baleen whale with its mouth open. The Star Witch cometh. Beams shot out from its big mouth, which cleared the tail of the fleeing IEC ships in an instant. Then, swarms of fighters and bombers were vomited out into space to escort the group safely away, with none daring to challenge this unusual dreadnought. Who was piloting all those bombers and fighters then? AI? I guess. Look, you aren't ready to process the cognitive load of what was actually happening here, so I'm going to keep it secret. The main point is that the Persian League was placed in a state of war with the IEC, but that sounds more dramatic than it really was. We'll encounter the consequences of that head-on in a bit, so first let's focus on the Lion and Star Witch also having a head-on encounter with the main hegemony battle fleet as soon as they passed into hyperspace. That fleet had the rest of the IEC ships, including Ryman in the Gargantua, very much surrounded. And while the Star Witch was overpowered, the hegemony battle fleet was very, very large. Most likely, a few of their big, square-shouldered battleships could launch enough ordnance to bring the Star Witch down. Even a baleen whale can get sick if it eats enough plankton, probably. "Are these men bothering you, Captain?" Contreras radioed to Ryman.
"Ah, Treasurer,"
came the exasperated reply.
"I was just explaining to these good officers that we were performing a routine press tour and we happened to catch a ping on the demidar of the ships that must have hijacked that transmitter to interfere with all our computers. Can you vouch that we were only being good citizens by chasing after them, and that's why it appears to the untrained eye that we were rapidly fleeing the scene of the crime?"
"Oh yes, Pope Ryman is a very good boy," Contreras said.
"Anything more serious than that? I think they've had enough of us, you know?"
Ryman low-key begged, but Contreras was too happy with herself right now. She was powering up her shields and loading up the death lasers with death laser juice. When you see every problem as a chance to test a new weapon, I suppose war comes naturally, doesn't it? Fortunately, they were saved from this hawkish hunger by the arrival of a would-be villain in most people's view of the Persian Chronicle, Baikal Dord. The self-proclaimed leader of all humanity had a thing to say or two about the IEC's increasingly belligerent nonsense.
Very well done, Captain Ryman,
was the first of such things. Ah, hi Hegemon, sir. Pleasure to meet you again. I'm so happy to— Wait, did you say well done?
Yes, for you have unleashed something we have long dreamt of. Freedom of information. That's what your hack was for. And I, for one, applaud you.
I think the jury is still out on whether we—
This is a private channel. The other captains can't hear us, and they await my order. So please be at ease, Captain. Or Pope. What title do you prefer?
Well, thanks. I tend these days to call myself Professor because, that's— Why don't you call me Mr. Ryman?
I shall call you Professor. Professor, do you remember what I told you?
Yes, certainly. You wanted me to force people to follow the rules, something like that.
Something like that, yes. And what you have done now is precisely something like that.
Precise is our aim, as always. I think I see what you're getting at, sir. The truth about the universe will force people to save it.
That is a very broad view. The truth about the universe will force people to rely on the bringers of those truths. That's a truth that I wanted to ensure does not escape you, ironically enough, because I have every faith that you and the IUC will achieve their goal. I believe you will save us all.
Wow, thanks. I mean, even my own crew don't think that, so it really means a lot to hear it. I think you're literally the first person I didn't have to pay to say it.
Yet a debt to me remains, and I will enlarge it further. I will handle the Persians here. Go quickly and make your solution. But I want you to remember that this was my decision. If you save this universe from destruction, then we will need to create a new order that will make use of all the time you will grant us, and to be ready for whatever nonsense emerges from the fog of time next. There can be only one order, one system, to ensure compliance. The domain was that, yet they were ignorant of how to rule. That is the piece you bring to this puzzle. A new domain that preserves human life and the human universe, without question, without dissent, without anything we've come to love in our short and horrible lives. That's the future you owe me, Professor Ryman. And don't you forget it.
Ryman agreed to whatever precisely was being said, sensing that death was the ever-present alternative. Hence, the hegemony battle fleet menaced the Persians into letting the IUC go for now. All's well that ends well. Maybe. All over the sector, information on the impending end of time was now freely spread across all networks, merging with myth and mutating with madness, creating a million different visions of the future. Yet all had one important similarity: something had to be done, and most of these even agreed that this strange ultra-governmental organization, which had published all these secrets, must also have a good chance of being the one to do the historic something. The only thing standing in their way was the chaos of all-out war, dwindling supplies of cash, furious allies, half the sector going rogue and pirating to get by day to day, and the spectre of a remnant fleet, freshly united in their plan to screw over humanity just enough to preserve them, like bacteria in a petri dish. In other words, the future was genuinely brighter than it had been in several hundred cycles. The nice thing about rock bottom is that the only way is up. If you ignore the extra directions that end-space manipulation makes possible, well, the cat was out of the bag, the ghost was out of the machine, and a witch was flying across the starry sky. The veil between life and death had grown thin indeed. Let's take a look through to the other side and see what we learn next.